Good morning. I'm going to continue talking about Emerson today, and in particular, reading through this biography. More than a biography, it's also just a really great survey of all of the essays that Emerson wrote and the development of the ideas within within those essays. So the chapter I'm looking at today is 42, and I was quite excited when I saw this because the title of the chapter is "We Are Not Children of Time," which, even before we get into the text of the lecture, text of the essay, that resonates with me. I just put up a video last week about a poem by Walt Whitman called Crossing Brooklyn Ferry. And I talk about Whitman as this avatar. Like, reading that poem is like an instruction manual for time travel. In the poem, he is observing the ferry, he's observing the people on the ferry, he's addressing us, the reader, in the future. But you really get the sense that it isn't just a poetic, "Oh, hark ye, the readers of this poem," type of rhetorical device. It really is Whitman peering through time, through the mechanism of that poem. That we are not bound by the physical constraints of our metabolism, and that poetry, art, prompts that realization. Right? It in some ways compels us to confront the fact that we have an experience that resides outside the physicality of time. So when Emerson uses the phrase "we are not children of time," which he does in the essay titled "History," he's articulating that same intuition that we are engaged in dialogue with the past and with the future. I have this sensation sometimes, and perhaps you all do too as well, of speaking back to my earlier self, my child self, or my young adult self. And, a lot of what I'm doing now, with my practice and with the things I study, I'm doing because I feel like they are lacunae from my 19-year-old student. Right? Here's an example. This is kind of personal. It's kind of intimate. It may not be at all relevant to the specifics of your life, but I bet there's something similar. When I was in college, so 18, 19, 20, I really took seriously the study of piano. Right? And I had a wonderful piano teacher, a French woman, Natasha. And I was also taking French language study at college because I'd taken French in high school. Growing up in England, we were taught French. So even without thinking, I just continued studying French at college and acquired a certain level of fluency. Not once did I speak French to my French piano teacher. Not once. Not only that, it never occurred to me. How wonderful would that have been to have a music lesson in French, playing Ravel, with a woman whose life overlapped with Ravel in Paris. So, a few years ago, that regret became very palpable to me, and so I started studying French again. And yeah, the the current me today enjoys the study of language. There's something just very satisfying in the brain about uh, switching between languages, reading in a different language from my daily language, listening. Uh, it's a very pleasant experience, but it also feels like a step back and reaching out back to my, you know, adolescent self and saying, okay, we are not children of time. I didn't do it then, but I'm doing it now. And a couple other things that I'm doing now with music and with study that, as a 56-year-old guy, uh, looking maybe hopefully the last third of my life. But things are different when you're 56 than they are when you're 16 or 26 or 36 or 46. There's a real sense that I'm engaging with the full spectrum of my metabolic life. And so Emerson writes, as he studies histories, he reads history, right? Whether that's Plutarch and the lives of the classical leaders and Stoics and philosophers that Plutarch writes about, or whether it's reading about Napoleon or anywhere in between. He writes, I see the same features. I catch the sparkle of the same eye. I identify the smile and the frown, the air and the voice, alike whether humanity appears in a helmet or a cowl, like a soldier or a monk, right? Or a fillet. I don't know what a fillet is, but I imagine it's a hat of some kind. In a golden crown or a braided palm leaf. When a thought of Plato becomes a thought to me, when a truth that fired the soul of St. John fires mine, time is no more. And then he refers to the stupendous fact of the radical identity of all people. We are not children of time. So I mentioned there were two things that this resonated with. The first was that wonderful Whitman poem. All of Whitman's poetry, but in Crossing Brooklyn Ferry, he is absolutely explicit about the timelessness vortex that is being created. We are as much present, and he is as much present to us, the reader today. Read the poem and listen to the other video as well. But the second piece then is, or the second idea that resonates is the musical piece, Quartet for the End of Time by Olivier Messiaen, which I talk a lot about over on my other channel, having just shifted all of these sort of meditation ideas onto this second channel, so I can focus on Messiaen and music and composition over on my Andrew Kaiser channel. This is the Practiced Life channel. And I did promise when I made that shift that there would be a lot of overlap. So the Messiaen piece, Quartet for the End of Time, I think it's a misreading of the phrase end of time to think that it is about the apocalypse or the revelation. It is, yeah, right? There's the trumpets that announce the revelation. But then what is the apocalypse? The end of time is not the cessation of all things. I think that's what comes through in that music. In fact, the music could continue forever, right? Messiaen's music has these patterns and canons, augmentations that, left unattended, would run in sequence for an eternity until they returned to their initial starting point. It's one of the wonderful aspects of his music, is you get this sense of a window into a process that intimates um, not immortality, although yes, immortality, but intimates eternity. Eternity or sempiternity was something I talked about a few years ago. The idea of time unending, or what I think is uh, more resonant with what Emerson is talking about here is uh, a vector where, or a state where time is no longer a vector. You know what I mean? Where time is not the x-axis, time is the y-axis. That's almost like a koan for me that I return to in my writing and in my music, particularly the electronic music, is what's the sensation where time is the y-axis? What's on the x-axis? If it's not time clicking by, what is it? Well, it's the sempiternity. It is the end of time in the sense that, is it the simultaneity? Maybe that's what I'm. Maybe that's the same idea, but it feels a bit more manifest than, like a bit more. When I think of the simultaneity, I think of the uncompressed universe before the Big Bang, or the compressed universe at the end of the unity. The sempiternity, all things are perceivable. Getting a bit out of my depth here, so probably time to wrap it up for the morning. But let me know what you think. When I'm done with the biography and the literary guide, I will dig into the actual essays, the actual lectures, which I am reading in parallel. But I find it very helpful to have a biography. I think Emerson was the same way, that he interested in the ideas, but equally interested in the life of the person having the ideas. I find it very, very grounding, but in the sense of it helps in my comprehension of the ideas if I have a better connection, a connection outside of time with those ideas, like Emerson talks about with those ideas of Plato. When those thoughts of Plato become my thoughts, when the thoughts of Emerson become my thoughts, there's a firing of the synapses, and that is a firing that is timeless, meaning it is not bound by the rigors of chronology. So, keep your wits about you, my friends, and I will talk to you again soon.